Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time it might happen to be, wherever you are, whoever you might happen to be. Welcome once again to Anime Octane, the show in which we look at a recent piece of anime entertainment and talk about it in depth, looking at things that were good or bad about it, things that worked or didn't work about it, things that they aimed for and either achieved or didn't, and getting into things like theme and tone and message and so on. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places, mostly as a tech journalist. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the Netflix anime Godzilla Singular Point. If you have not seen this show and you hate spoilers, you should probably not be watching this. If you don't mind spoilers or you have seen the show and you want to talk about it, please feel free. Jump into the chat. We got a couple of people in chat already. And let us know what you think about the show, what you think about my opinions, and so on. Before I get into describing what this is and where it's from, Charles Santino de Castro, I already watched Godzilla Singular Point. Cool. If you're still with us, that was a fairly early comment. Please feel free to weigh in. Luminous, welcome to the show. Welcome back as always. Hello all. I actually know something about the makers of this anime and I've watched it. The series title in Japanese is, and then something in Japanese. So, what is Godzilla Singular Point? Well, first off, it's in the Godzilla universe. It is an anime that is produced by Toho, so it is 100% squarely made with the approval and, in fact, by the people responsible for the entire Godzilla intellectual property. It is made by, the studios producing it are Bones and Studio Orange. Orange makes two of the most amazing CGI animated, like 3D animation products ever made, Beastars and Land of the Lustrous. If you've not seen either of those and you're any kind of an anime fan, watch both. They do things with making 3D animation look like 2D drawing while still having the fluidity of 3D that almost no other studio can muster. I can't remember whether it was Mappa or not, but the people behind Inuyashiki Last Hero came really close. And Bones is Bones, Soul Eater and My Hero Academia, and Noragami and Space Dandy, and just going all the way back to Escaflowne. So, Bones has, the reputation of making amazing quality, generally 2D animated products. And I would really be interested in knowing, sort of how the studio interplay worked with these two companies. I'm pretty sure that Orange handled all of the 3D work on any of the kaiju, and I'm pretty sure that Bones handled the 2D work on any of the other stuff. But then who got the material and did most of the compositing? If you are that familiar with some of the people behind it, Luminous, if you know any of the answers to this, please let me know. I'm very curious. Because I'll get into some of that in the upcoming what I liked and what I didn't like. The story, let's see, which one of the stories? I guess I'll go with this one from Wikipedia. It's set in Nigash, yeah, and I have a problem reading because of my allergies. Nigashio City in Chiba Prefecture in the year 2030. Engineer Arakawa Yun of a local, fix-it-all shop called Otaki Factory is investigating these weird happenings at a theoretically abandoned Western-style house in Japan, in the area, and I guess going after her master's or doctorate. Anyway, genius scientist Kamino Mei. She's a graduate student. She's studying what she calls imaginary creatures, cryptids and so on. Is hired to investigate a mysterious signal that's coming out of an abandoned administrative district building for the area. Their stories fairly quickly come together, but they start off as completely, seemingly unconnected stories, except we know they both at various times happen to hear this same music from various sources. And the stories come together, and ultimately they find out that it involves these kaiju appearing, and of course it's Godzilla Singular Point, so one of them is ultimately, of course, going to be Godzilla, and and then them and the people around them struggling to deal with this, which is the most simplistic way you could describe this incredibly complex narrative. And again, that's something I'll get into in a little bit. It's a Netflix anime. It started, I think, running in August here in the United States. It ran on other channels in June in Japan. I guess it was all the way back in March in Japan Netflix. So that's the basic gist of what this is. It's a Godzilla story. It's a new original, not based on anything else, Godzilla story, although boy is it kind of based on everything else, or certainly very influenced by. So the first thing we do in shows like this, and once again, we're spoiling the heck out of this, so I'm going to be talking about elements that actually happen within the show, is we talk about things we like. And there's a lot I like about this show. One of the things that I like is the fact that it is so incredibly dense a show. The plot is about as dense a science fiction plot as you could imagine having. And that's laid right at the feet of the writer, who is a science fiction author, who has essentially no other credits. He wrote a couple of Space Dandy episodes in anime or kind of anywhere outside of science fiction literature. So Enjo To is his pen name, and he's written all kinds of award-winning stuff in Japan. Even won one U.S. award, the Philip K. Dick Award, a special citation for a interconnected short story collection called Self-Reference Engine. Yes, so as I'm sort of about to get to, Lumina says the writer is To Enjo, or Enjo To, if you're doing it in Japanese. Japanese science fiction. His writings are dense with references to mathematics, physics, linguistics, literary theory, and philosophy. So this guy got his degree in physics, his bachelor's in physics, and went on to get a PhD for mathematical physical study on the natural languages. Yeah. So this guy is about as close to a real human being version of Amy Adams's character in Arrival as you can get. And I'm kind of amazed that very little of this sort of linguistic stuff winds up in this story, as much as I can tell. Now, having said that, in the original Japanese, this may be, linguistically as dense as the plot is. I don't know. But it's also directed by somebody who doesn't have a lot of deep credits as a full-fledged director, and certainly nothing in anything really spectacular, but the director does a fantastic job. So the plot, like I said, is incredibly intricate and complex, and I like that, although I'll also get into a reason why I kind of don't like that. Luminous, as critics, it's called a science fiction story. It's indigestible, sleep-inducing, and reader unfriendly. Yes, I got that too from the same Wikipedia article. Yeah, and if you have a writer who is incredibly dense in their area of expertise, sometimes it can be really difficult for other people to get through. Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun series, Shadow of the Torturer, and so on, is 100% influenced by his the fact that he has a doctorate in classics. So if you know somebody who also has that and has done the analysis on it, you can see where, this is entirely based on like mid-period Byzantine governmental structure and things like that. I wouldn't get it, but boy does his ability to pull these references in and use them deeply and densely in the Book of the New Sun make it really too dense for some people to get through. I love discovering that sort of stuff. I love that feel of this brings up another so there's a big time travel aspect, or travel, time communication, time, it's hard to say, aspect to this story, which makes it, that part is complex enough that it reminds me quite a bit of Steins Gate. Just completely blanked on that one for a second. Because there's so many of them after they came out with that, name, punctuation, name. Got me confused for a bit. So Steins Gate also did for me what some of the best dense works have done for me, and it got me once I realized that it was based a little bit on, or based entirely on, the John Titor time travel hoax, maybe, on the internet in the early days of the internet. I went down even further down that rabbit hole of learning more about that, that thing that is real, that really happened. That the hoax really happened. Not that John Titor actually traveled back from the future. And this gave me that same sort of vibe, so I really want to know more about this. And it ends with a setup that there really should be a season 2, even though one has not been announced, so I'd love to know more about this. And hopefully will. So the other things I like about this, I love the animation. I think that this is one of the best combinations of 3D and 2D that has not been done by Ufotable with their Demon Slayer work and so on, that exists. It's fantastic. I think the characterizations are really well done. They aren't incredibly deep or complex characters. There's nobody here that's struggling with a massive, complex issue or anything like that. But they are well realized individual characters nonetheless. And even if we don't know for sure whether they're struggling with a lot, there's some hints that some of, particularly the secondary characters, the genius scientist Gyuying Lee, the equally genius scientist, apparently an Irishman living in India, Bera, how do they pronounce his name? In here, yeah, Bera Ban, or we'd pronounce it Bera Byrne, like John Byrne. And he has a daughter who is half Indian, adorable young girl, Lena. And there's an awful lot about their late mother, or her late mother, his late wife, and so on, that, there's some depth in here that they could really mine with characters other than, what they presented here. May is a wonderful, interesting young woman, genius scientist that isn't, particularly a deep character, but again, well realized. And I like that. There's the good characterizations. I also like the fact that I am not anywhere near as deep a Godzilla fan as, say, Luminous is. So when I started researching some of the kaiju that appear, I mean, sure, I know Rodan, and Rodan appears as, in this case, essentially pterodactyl-sized creatures, but multiples, and they're all called Rodans. Um, but there's a lot in here that I didn't know, and every kaiju is based on one of Toho's previous characters that either appeared in a Godzilla movie or in a movie all of its own. One of the most important kaijus is called in this Salunga, and it's apparently a reference to Gabara, which was in one movie, Toho movie, all of its own, and the reason it never appeared anywhere else is because apparently in that movie it's encapsulated as though it is, or specifically that it is, a dream of some kid. So it never really happened in the, Godzilla universe. So the character was never used anywhere else. Well, they picked it up and just renamed it here. And there's just so many more that, I was like, wait, that was in a Godzilla movie? Oh, yeah, okay. The Manda, or the Mandas, in this case, there are multiple versions of them. No idea, because I've never seen that movie, in which these sort of like fish-like serpent monster kaiju creatures from the ocean exist. So I really like that density of back lore that exists for this and how they mine it. I never saw the one movie in which Jet Jaguar, the giant robot, appears. But Jet Jaguar is, I guess, technically really the star of this whole series. And it's wonderful knowing that there's all this other stuff back there, mostly comic books and apparently games that the character appeared in. Again, Jet Jaguar appeared apparently in just one movie, one Godzilla movie. So one of my favorite things in comic books is when you take a team of, B tier, maybe one A tier, and then a bunch of C and D tier characters, and you put them together into, a very interesting dynamic group and story. Luminous, some of the Singular Point kaijus are combinations of 2 or 3 previous kaijus. Some of these combinations are very creative. Yeah, so even I didn't know that. I figured they were all just straight up slight reinterpretations of. But my point is that I love those kind of stories, and that's the kind of feel that I get in a lot of cases from this. That, this is pulling characters and creatures that appeared maybe in 1 or 2 Godzilla movies, other than Godzilla himself, of course, and bringing them together into a pretty important parts of the overall story here. One of the things I like is their treatment of Godzilla, which is very much influenced by the recent Shin Godzilla, in which Godzilla mutates from form to form. We don't actually see what is the closest thing to the final Godzilla form until the last couple of episodes, and it's still really pretty cool. Where, let's see, let me get Godzilla here. This is your Godzilla final form, and I believe this is the Godzilla form right before that. Where you can see in both forms Godzilla retains these sort of tusks coming down from the top of its mouth. Actually, now when I see that almost cat-like nose, this is the final form of Godzilla 2. The next to the final form very much has a sort of a Shin Godzilla, longer snout, more lizard or crocodile-like sort of look to it. And that's cool. I really like that. I thought that was very neat. I watch, as I always, subtitled, so I can only comment on the work of the Japanese voice cast. They are fantastic. They do a very good job with their characters. Even the Japanese voice actors that are doing the English-speaking characters, because there are some American characters in here, um, and at times they do speak English. They are clearly not doing just phonetic English. They are, they picked actors who were very fluent in English as well as Japanese. So I like that. I thought that was very good. Um, didn't really think that the music did anything particularly for me. The opening and ending credits were forgettable. Um, and the music throughout is exciting when it needs to be, but it there's nothing memorable about it. Um, and that's pretty much it as far as my likes. I'm sure I'm going to remember some other things. But well, I guess one more thing: the designs, the overall character design. So a former Ghibli designer did most of the kaiju designs, and you can tell they're really intricate. They're very cool. Definitely the design of everything in this. Okay, and I guess I will do one more thing: the treatment of the characters, particularly of May. So May is kind of presented as so that's from one of the promotional title pieces. That's Yun with his headphones and May with her little top knot, and the thing in front of her is the AI Pelops 2, which plays a very important role, which she kind of just for some reason allows to take over her phone, which is weird. Luminous. I listened to the US dub so I could watch the visuals instead of reading subtitles. It was a good dub. Cool. Good to know. Um, I wouldn't expect anything less from the people behind this, from Bones and Orange. But it's good to know that they stick to their quality. Bones in particular really gets quality English dubs. Um, you know, Soul Eater, I watched in dub because I don't think I had the subtitle version accessible to me at the time, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because I was recommended that I should get the dub because of the voice acting. So one of the things about May is she's kind of a, slob isn't the right word, but, she clearly is not a glamorous person, and she runs around a lot in kind of, I don't know, like gym shorts, and various different interesting t-shirts. They could, and many animes would, have played with those gym shorts as a very titillating look to the character. Um, and that's almost non-existent here. There's no male gaze focus on the shorts. They're not particularly tight on her. It's just, if you're to give somebody credit for not doing something terrible seems kind of weird, except, we're talking anime here. So, these people deserve credit. So what didn't I like? There's not much I didn't like about it. I thought that as the series went on and the author got a little bit deeper into the playing around with science fictional ways of using quantum physics to talk about time and so on. Now, granted, he's a physicist. He has his PhD, so I shouldn't be complaining about his playing fast and loose with quantum physics, but it got a little too far into the metaphysical stuff for me. And maybe that was, him just, that's the nature of what he wanted to try to do with this story, and that's fine. But if, in my opinion, if you're going to be using science to sort of start to justify things that are happening, you should stick to science. Once you start getting to interpretations of science that border on, metaphysical mumbo jumbo, it starts to lose me. And boy, did this get far into those metaphysical weeds by the end of the series. That makes the ultimate resolution such as there is, and there isn't really that much of a real resolution in this. Godzilla is sort of not there by the at the end of the big battle, pretty clearly not destroyed, and it makes the things that cause that ultimate resolution to be pretty much a Deus Ex Machina. Oh, this stuff from the future was sent back to help you. I mean, it's a little Tenet-like. And like Tenet, it's a little internally inconsistent with how it deals with. All right, I'll give the author this. Throughout the course of the series, people are trying to figure out what all of this stuff that plays with time is all about. Crystals, dust, things. Many of which, as well as certain individual creatures and things, are these singular points, these time connection points. And so the people who are, as they're trying to get a handle on this stuff, are coming up with different theories, and this is how it works. So yeah, maybe we have sort of unreliable narrators because they don't really know how this stuff works until we get closer to the end. So I guess I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack for that. But ultimately, when you do get to the end, it's kind of a, okay, no, I'm not really sure if that makes sense. Maybe it'll make more sense in the second season if we get one. I don't know. And that's me as a science fiction fan. I love this sort of stuff. And I was really deeply into it until the last couple of episodes when it started to be clear that it was going to be used as a Deus Ex Machina to get people out of trouble. I'm like, okay. It was a little facile, a little easy way to deal with the ending. And anything else I didn't like about it? Not much. It's a little heavy-handed on the, it's the foreign influence in Japan that's always the problem when it comes to Godzilla and the kaiju and so on. But that's kind of typical for the whole series anyway. Until you get up to something like Shin Godzilla, in which the fault of all of this is pretty clearly laid at the the current government and the politics and so on. It's an awful lot of either foreign nationals or ultimately aliens are kind of responsible for the bad things that happen around Godzilla. And this plays into that as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I disliked about it. Not really. They're nitpicky stuff like I mentioned with May, a genius physics and engineering student allowing a completely unknown AI to just sort of install itself on her phone because it sounds like cute. Maybe, not everybody in one discipline is a genius in another, like cybersecurity, but I don't know. It just seems a little weird. That's a nitpick that I can have. In no other way do they treat their characters as sort of enabling the plot to advance via stupidity. They are all bright, all very bright. Luminous, the plot sounded like gibberish to me. It just seemed like it was there to fill time in between the kaiju. I got tired of hearing about the orthogonal diagonalizer. And now that I know that Enjo-san is a physics and mathematics PhD, that makes sense. That terminology, I kind of, it's like, that's a little weird. Talking about something that controls time or allows you to manipulate the material that controls time as a geometric object, an orthogonal diagonalizer. And so, terminology like that is part of the reason why I got pretty tired of that, what you call gibberish, because it did eventually become pretty much gibberish. prior to, like I said, those last few episodes, where they got really deep into the stuff like the orthogonal diagonalizer about, how it manipulates the dust and the crystals that manipulate time through the singular points. And it's like, yeah, okay. Now, if I didn't know better, I would say this was the baffle them with bullshit methodology of having people just go glaze over, like, sure, whatever, get to the kaijus fighting. And maybe that was, particularly the point here. I don't think so, based on how much of an award-winning author this guy is. I think in his mind, he thinks that this stuff applies and makes sense. Whether he, to what extent he portrayed that to various people, I followed it fairly well up until the end. It sounds like Luminous just, like, right out of the gate went, this is dumb, just get to the kaijus. It's up to the individual. So anyway, yeah, that was a particular problem. There's not much else that I don't like about this. And as far as theme, tone, and message, it's pretty clearly in the anime camp, work together. It's not quite the power of friendship, because they're not really friends. But it is very much the power of, cooperation and work together, and we can, all get things done, including on the kaiju side. With the multiple Rodans and the multiple Amandas and so on, all working together in some fashion. It's clearly they're trying to represent that on both sides. That it's, teamwork gets the dream work, or makes the dream work, or however it's supposed to go. Luminous Jet Jaguar was cool and well done. He's been a fan favorite. We've not seen him since 1973, which is, in movies or anything like the TV shows, yeah. From what I've read, he also appears in, or has appeared since then, in comics or manga, and in video games. But I don't think there's any other deeper message to this except that it doesn't really have the sort of environmental impact that the most recent English version movies have had, or impact statement, or Shin Godzilla had. There's some of that there, but that's clearly not the primary point behind this whole thing. And I don't know that you can get any sort of theme out of the time travel stuff. Tone is kind of all over the place, and this is something that I think gets back to Luminous's comment. It is an exciting kaiju battle with giant, kaiju / giant mech battle, anime, with an awful lot of, either deep and interesting scientific investigation work or really boring, gibberish-filled scientific investigation work, depending upon either your point of view or how far along you're willing to go with the gibberish. So it's tonally kind of mixed. I like that. I think that's fine. I like, the, intellectual thought process kind of stories in with my action stories, if I can get them, and if they ultimately make sense, which this kind of doesn't. But other people would be turned off by that. It's like, I'm here to see Godzilla. At least it's not the first of the American-made Godzilla movies where it's just absolute meaningless drivel with occasional outstanding performances by somebody who dies way too soon in the movie. And then you get a few kaiju battles that aren't Godzilla, and then Godzilla kind of maybe shows up at the end, but it's really hard to tell because of the way it's shot and virtually shot with the CG. That's an example of how not to mix tone. I think this mixes the tones well for me. But again, other people would not take to that particularly well. And like I said, I don't think there's any overriding message behind this. There may be if it goes into a second season and we get a little bit deeper understanding of why this time travel stuff is happening. But no, maybe not. So that's pretty much it, folks. That wraps up our Anime Octane show on Godzilla Singular Point. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I think the animation is fantastic. I think the kaiju designs are wonderful. I think the action is stellar. You know, when there is action, it is Sakuga all the way. It's smooth, it's exciting, it's well done. I think the characters are really cool and well done for the most part. I think the plot is interesting up to a point. So yeah, I would recommend this. Where on the scale of 1 to 10 does it drop? I'd give it a 7. I think it's pretty solid. It could have been an 8 if the author didn't go sort of off the rails with the pseudoscience aspect of science. But, you know, what can you do? So, having said that, that's it, folks. That's our show. Tomorrow, Nerd Week Live. We will be covering all the nerd news that has dropped in the last week. Already putting some stuff up in there. Not nearly as busy as it was last week. Last week was insane. This previous week has been relatively slow in comparison. So it'll probably be an easier show for us to get through. And this coming Thursday, our full fat spoiler chat is going to be on, I believe, Star Wars Visions. The Disney Plus show where, speaking of anime, we have anime versions of Star Wars world stories. If you haven't seen it, folks, I would recommend doing so. It's pretty easy. There are 9 episodes, and they vary in length between like 13 and 22 minutes. So please, if you get a chance, join us for that Star Wars Vision show. That's it, folks. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Luminous, good night back at you. And we will see you at an upcoming show. In the meantime, please do check out our Patreon if you get a chance to at patreon.com/nerdcaliber. That's right there. We'd love to have you support us so we can get to more cons and provide more content and so on. And stay safe, folks, please, out there. We'll see you at